Hi, this is Anglos.co.il. I'm Warren Lewis, and today we're going to be talking about insurance in Israel, a general overview of what insurance is out there, when you should be getting it. Today in the studio, we have Danny Newman from Goldfus Insurance. Danny, welcome.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in today. We appreciate your time. Maybe to start off with, you can give us a bit of a background, your experience in Israel, your experience in the insurance industry.
Okay. So originally from the UK, from England. I actually started off in the world of insurance back in England. I used to work for Sun Life of Canada. I was a financial consultant there, and I came on Aliyah in 1999. Left the insurance world for a few years. I also straddled the educational world, worked for the Jewish Agency, the UGIA, and came back into the world of insurance back in 2006 and joined Goldfus Insurance. I opened up the Modi'in office in 2006, the Bet Shemesh office in 2012, and I hold a license in both main fields of insurance. Elementary insurance, Bituch Klali, which covers home, car, travel, business insurance, and also Bituach Hayim, life and pensions and health insurance. So I'm licensed in both fields and been working for virtually 15 years now with Goldfus Insurance.
Great, so you're the right guy to speak to. Let's say I arrive in Israel, I'm a new Oleh. What types of insurance are out there? When should I be looking at getting them? Maybe explain a little bit. So
I guess the whole question is, what is insurance first and foremost? There's nothing majorly different in Israel to any other country in the world. I also don't believe that it's like purchasing bread or purchasing milk where you tick off the list, got my bread, got my milk, got my insurance. And I find often people make mistakes purchasing insurances because they either feel that's what they should have, or someone has tried to convince them to take a certain type of insurance. In my opinion, it's a personal issue that people need to look at. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. For example, if you have two people, someone who's, let's say, 55 years old, never got married, has no dependents, and let's say is very affluent, their insurance needs may be rather minimal. Someone who's, let's say, a 30-year-old with 3 young children who doesn't have a huge financial backing behind them may have other needs. You know, we can divide it into two different worlds. You've got the physical. I own a car. What is my concern? Is the car going to be damaged? How can I afford to replace it? So there's an insurance concept as far as, I guess, tangible items, homes, and then you've got your well-being. The risk of either living too short, the risk of living too long, to make sure you've got enough savings and coverage, in retirement. Something goes wrong, just like you have a car and you would service a car. What happens if my body starts malfunctioning? How do I take care of that? Is there anything that I can do? That's in essence the concept, and it's then looking at the products. And I believe each person should find someone they're comfortable to sit with, who's going to take a holistic view, looking at you or me as the individual, to see what is best for me, giving you the tools, or the Oleh the tools, or it doesn't have to be an Oleh, any individual the tools, so they can assess everything, be aware of what exists, so that the individual can then make an informed decision what may be best for them.
Got you. Let's say, again, looking at somebody who's making Aliyah, for example, or coming back to Israel, are there insurances that they can look at before, or is everything done once you arrive?
So there are a few things that can be done in advance, and I guess we need to also consider 2 different groups of people as well. You've got a brand new Oleh, so someone like myself. When I came on Aliyah in 1999, I wasn't a returning citizen. I was a British citizen, still am a British citizen, but a British citizen who chose to come and live here in Israel. So I was able to come here and join the Kupat Cholim, the HMO, the socialized medical coverage that's very, very good in this country with no problems whatsoever.
Right.
I then had a choice to then add on to that, which I guess we can talk about in another time, or if there's time now. But then you've got the returning citizen, someone who has left Israel. And we have a lot of people who approach us with this issue, where they may have made aliyah or may have lived here many years ago, went on yurida, went to live in another country, and have decided to come back to live in Israel. Bituch Leumi, the national insurance, stops when they leave the country,
right.
And they may have two options: a 6-month wait period before they can join one of the HMOs, or to pay 12,000 shekel to waive that 6-month period. So for those people who don't want to pay that 12,000 shekel amount to waive that 6-month period, they're kind of stuck.
Yes.
So they will have a question for them: how do I get coverage? Should I need to see a doctor?
Right.
Or worse?
In that interim 6-month period.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there are a few options. One of those options is a private insurance plan. There are certain limitations to that as well, but there are various options there. So that's one aspect as far from a health insurance perspective for a returning citizen, which they should look into in advance of coming, because you don't want to come here and then start running around with all the bureaucracy of signing up for various other things they need to do anyway, and neglect to think about the health, and then something unforeseen occurs and they're stuck. So that is something for someone who's a returning citizen, there they should look at that in advance of coming. That's one aspect.
Gotcha.
There are other things that one can look into also before coming. One is insurances they may have from overseas. For example, someone who has life insurance from their country of origin, I always recommend that they should get in writing from their current insurer, will it cover them here in Israel?
Yes.
There are certain policies, and I often hear on social media as well, there's a Facebook group which I am one of 3 professional administrators of, called Living Financially Smarter in Israel, with over 30,000 members, where questions come up the whole time. So the question of whether I should keep my life insurance policy from overseas.
Right.
And people will sometimes say, oh, you can do it. And some people will say, I did it with this company. I have found that you need to look specifically at your policy, because there could be that a policy from a certain year, or if it's been in place for a certain length of time, may cover you or may not cover you. So I always recommend, first and foremost, get in writing that your policy will still cover you, that you're no longer domiciled, no longer living in that same country.
Right.
It's futile paying a cost
Absolutely.
for insurance if in the event there's a claim that it won't pay out.
Right. Absolutely.
So from that point of view, I would say get in writing that it will still cover you. Then once you've relocated and you're settled here, then you can check, are there other alternatives? It may be that the older policy, when you're younger, healthier, on a lower tariff, may be better to keep and maintain. The question of where will it pay out? Do my beneficiaries need to have an account there? How easy to access it? Or is it worthwhile reducing the sum there, taking some here to balance things? But those are things which can wait till afterwards. But first, before you leave the country, whatever policies you may want to or consider to maintain, or if you're coming here for a period of time where you say, well, for the next 6 months or year, I'm testing the waters.
Yeah.
If you've cancelled a policy there and you decide it's not working out here, hopefully it should work out for everyone. I'm not trying to advocate that someone comes here with a view to go back.
Sure.
But we have to be, from an insurance perspective, insurance policies will often exclude pre-existing conditions. So if someone cancelled a policy there and they're not 100% sure they're going to come and stay here and think, we think it's going to work, we'll make aliyah, worst case scenario, we'll go back. So maybe you want to keep for a few months or so the old policy.
You don't want to have to reapply.
Reapplying, and then something happens.
You're older and you don't have, you weren't the same person you were when you first got that life insurance.
Exactly. So those are things that I, from a health perspective and from a life insurance perspective, that I would recommend.
Got you. So we've touched on the life insurance. That's something to look at. The medical insurance, the health insurance, which would be an addition to your Kupat Cholim, which we get here in Israel. We've touched on the car insurance.
I would add on the car insurance one thing also.
Yes.
It's very important. A lot of Olim fall into this issue, and we'll speak maybe about this more when we speak about car insurance in depth. When someone comes to Israel, they can be treated as a new driver or someone with no insurance history here. So it's very worthwhile obtaining a letter from your insurer overseas to get that claims document. I know some countries have a driving document. We're not necessarily interested to say, oh, I was a really good driver, I never had any convictions or things like that. We're not interested in that. We are interested in the insurance claims. So if someone has a no claims record from overseas, we recommend coming with 3 or 4 years as a minimum of a report which lists how many claims in the past 3-4 years, because that way you come with that document. We and other agents as well who are familiar with working with them are able to transpose that and provide the insurance history for the Oleh, so that they don't end up paying a higher premium because they have lack of insurance records here in Israel. So I would definitely recommend, in advance of coming, whilst you're still familiar with your insurer overseas, ask for that letter which shows 3 or 4 years of claims history before you get on the plane.
Got you. What about something like home insurance? If you buy a home, you can get home insurance. If you're renting a home, is there some form of insurance that you need to get?
Definitely. The home insurance has 3 main categories within it. A lot of people call it renter's insurance. It's actually, in Hebrew, it's called Bituach Dira. And it's a standardized policy which can be adapted and enhanced to fit the individual's needs. So one section is structure, anything that's physically attached. So the kitchen units, bathroom units, anything that's physically attached to the walls or the ceiling, that comes under structure insurance. Obviously, someone who's renting initially, they don't need to concern themselves about that in the majority of cases. You've got contents, personal belongings. That can be furniture, clothing, jewellery, laptop computers, and you can extend the coverage to cover things on an accidental basis or outside the home for certain items as well. And then you've got all the liabilities. What happens if someone comes and visits me and they've slipped because we washed the floors and they've broken their hip? What happens as a homeowner? I have a burst water pipe and the water's dripped down to the apartment beneath us. The liabilities that I can be held responsible for, those can be insured. So it all comes under homeowners, and we can discuss at a later time. Within the rental contract, before signing on the contract, I would strongly advise speaking to a professional who's familiar with rental contracts and insurance. This is something which, on our website we have an article about it. You can search Goldfus and rent and insurance, where we explain the clauses that can be added to protect each side. But ultimately, before signing on the contract, there are definitely clauses that you can put in that can protect you from being countersued by the other person's, the landlord's insurance company, if you are held liable for any of the damages.
Got you. Okay, so we've covered all of those. Is there any other kind of insurance that I should be aware of that's maybe not so common abroad that people sort of get when here?
So there aren't really. I mean, it's pretty much the same one. But I would just add on one thing for the home insurance, which I'm just thinking of now. People often come with the suitcases and they may send a shipment. So there's marine insurance available with the shippers. That's not something that's done necessarily through the insurance agency as well. That should be done through this.
That will be done at the time when you're planning the shipment to bring your
exactly.
Things.
But once it comes to your property, in advance you should speak to your agent. Then you can have it covered there. But when you come off the plane, with what usually happens is you've got basic belongings and you may have some jewellery. A ring, some earrings. If you have an appraisal or an evaluation from overseas, that can be covered straight away. So I would also recommend in advance, so that the moment you touch down in Ben Gurion Airport, we and other agents can make sure that there is a policy set up to cover those things in the interim whilst you're waiting for the shipment to arrive as well.
Got you. So I come to Israel, there's all these different insurances that I need to look at. When I'm looking for an insurance company or an agent, are there certain accreditations, certifications, things like that I should be looking for, that I should be asking them for when I'm seeking out an insurance agent?
So the insurance industry is a very heavily regulated industry in Israel.
Okay.
So ultimately, it's regulated by two bodies, which kind of creates conflict because there's, for me, for example, to get licensing, even though I was licensed in the UK,
yes.
I couldn't just say I want to work as an insurance agent.
Right.
I had to get licensing here, and because there were two governing bodies, they both did not know how to recognise a license from the UK.
Okay.
So I ended up having to do all 8 professional exams, some regulated by the Finance Ministry,
right.
and the other by the Israel Securities Authority, the ISA, called in Hebrew Roshut Le'Nerot Erech.
Got you.
So it's a very heavily regulated industry. So an insurance agent, so like myself, so you can search as well. They're online. Yeah. I have it runs each calendar year. So my license for 2021 will expire on the 31st of December. Sometime during December, I get a notification to renew my license. And if you want to make sure the person's licensed, you can ask them, are you licensed? Because you can't work in the industry as a broker or as an agent without that license.
Without the licensing.
There are direct line insurers as well where you can go directly to them.
Yes.
There are pros and cons to each.
Yes.
With a broker or an agent, you've got someone who should ultimately be batting for you in the event of a claim, so you're not left on your own.
Yes.
There are some agents who are tied agents who may only work with 1 or 2 companies.
Yes.
There are agents like myself who we're non-tied. We work with all the major companies.
Are there insurance agents that sort of specialize or deal only in sort of 1 or 2 fields of insurance, or are most of the companies able to provide you with a full basket of cover?
So it depends. Firstly, as I mentioned, I hold 2 different licenses. I mentioned earlier the general insurance,
yes,
and I hold the license in the life and pension.
Got you.
So you may have an agent who's only licensed out of choice to deal with home and car,
yes,
and travel and business insurances. So they won't necessarily be able to provide you with information or policies connected to health or life,
right,
or pensions.
Yes.
Conversely, you may have someone who's chosen just to have the life one and doesn't have the elementary license.
Right.
Some people choose to do that. Goldfus as an agency, we do have within our office some agents who are just licensed in one, licensed in both, and as an agency, we can deal with everything. I myself can speak to a client about both, and I specialise in both. Yes. There are agents who choose not to do certain things. So there was a massive change a few years ago in the way pensions work in Israel.
I was going to ask you, my pension, whether I'm self-employed or employed by an overseas company or working locally, you would also handle my pension for me as well?
So I do that as well, but there are some agents who have the license to do that because it comes together within the life insurance license. However, some agents have chosen not to, because there's a lot of paperwork involved, or the way the remuneration works as far as pensions has changed.
Right.
And not everyone was geared up to work in the new way that pensions worked.
Yeah.
So they have chosen not to. So in theory, they have the license to do it, but they will be open. They'll be very open. They'll say, right, I don't handle this type of insurance.
Okay, great. Now, as an Anglo, all the information is going to be in Hebrew, I'm going to rely on the broker to translate and go through everything for me. Is there help for English speakers who don't have the Hebrew?
So there are a couple of points which need to be clarified. Firstly, even if something is available, some things are available in English. On the English documents, they usually have an asterisk at the bottom saying the Hebrew terms and conditions are binding.
Right. So there's the small print. We don't get that in the English.
So a translation is an interpretation ultimately, and they can be very, very accurate. However, the legal terminology is in the Hebrew original.
So all those contracts and documents that we sign, that's not available in English?
No, I haven't said that.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that there are things which are available in English, and I'll go through different things. There are certain websites, our website, for example, has a lot of information and articles in English. However, there are different stages. You've got the stage of being able to understand what the insurance is,
Yes.
the stage of the paperwork, the actual policy, and then in the unforeseen event of a claim being made. So there are four, I look at it as 4 stages. You've got stage 1, which is the comprehension of what's there to enable you as the individual to be able to make an informed decision.
Right.
You've got the actual forms. Then you've got the policy itself and the claim. So understanding things, there are certain policies which have literature. There are certain things, for example, I or my colleagues have translated certain things.
Yes.
There was one insurance company, for example, I look at a few months ago, for one of their policies, they asked us, and I worked with some of my colleagues, to translate things so that they could put out an English brochure. They tend to come to us. We're at Goldfus. We've been in the industry quite a while.
Yes.
I believe we're the oldest and largest English-speaking agency in Israel.
Okay.
We were set up in 1971 by Chaim Goldfus, hence the name Goldfus.
Right.
Originally,
makes sense.
Has a similar accent to you. Originally from South Africa.
Okay.
And so we're now in our 50th year.
Okay.
And so we have the ability to translate or give information over. So the insurance companies sometimes come to us and have us with our insurance nous and know-how, and we're often brought in to assist the insurance companies in putting certain things together. However, across the board, I would say the vast majority of information, unfortunately, for the Oleh, is in Hebrew. However, my job is to break it down. And it's about assessing, having that conversation with the individual to get to know the person. I don't believe that it is my job as an agent or any agent's job to say to you, this is what you must take.
Yes.
Because your take on insurance may be completely different to mine.
Right.
Your financial status may be different to mine. Your family status may be different to mine as well. So anyone usually who's approached by a cold caller, oh, you need to get this insurance, the cold caller is usually looking primarily through their lens. How can I earn a quick buck?
Yes.
The advantage I have is I don't work on commissions. I work on a salary, so I don't have that carrot dangling in front of me where, oh, if I make this sale, I'm going to earn a bit more.
Absolutely.
So I'm able to take that holistic view. And I believe the role of the agent is to assess together with the individual and explain in English so that that person understands what's available and so that they can assess what they would like to consider, if anything. The next stage is the forms. Some forms are available in English.
Yes.
The majority aren't. However, a lot of things today are digitalized. So I have templated, for some of my clients, questions. Either I can do it over the phone and the conversation will be recorded for regulatory purposes, and then I can prepare all the documentation and send it as an SMS text with a link. They click on their phone and it shows them where to sign.
Right.
They want the forms afterwards for their records. We can send it as a PDF to them afterwards. That's not a problem. But ultimately, the advantage that other English speakers as well can do for their clients is to make the process simpler by asking them the questions in English or templating it in an email where they answer it so everything's documented and can be saved in the file and then transposed into the Hebrew form.
Gotcha.
Then you've got the actual policy. So a lot of policies will only be available in Hebrew.
Right.
We are able to put out home insurance policies in English. We also anyway put a cover note with all the policies, the cover letter, which will bullet point a summary in English.
Okay, great. So that'll be in English.
So that we can do, that's not a problem.
Gotcha.
But there are policies which aren't available, and then I would say if something's not clear, because even if it's in English, insurance is a different language anyway. There are certain technological terms which someone may not be familiar with.
Right.
For example, in Hebrew you've got hishtatfut atzmit, which in Queen's English is the excess. In American English, maybe a deductible, or loosely translated as a copay. In a car insurance claim, if I've got a scratch for it costs 500 shekel to fix, that may be less than your copay, your hishtatfut atzmit, your deductible, your excess. So if I've used the term deductible to someone who's, let's say, from London, they say, what do you mean? If I've used the term excess to someone from, let's say, from Chicago, they may say, what's the excess mean? So even though I've used two English words, so it may be, even if something's in English. The nuance
and where you come from.
Exactly. So ask as well. If you are the Olet and something's not clear, and this is the same not just for Israel, any English country as well, you've got a policy, read through the terms and conditions, make sure that the policy is covering what you want to be covering as well. So ask as well. So that's the actual policy document. And then the final thing is there's the claims process. So quite often that can be quite challenging. If you're dealing with some direct line insurers, you're dealing with a switchboard and trying to get through. How do I do this?
Especially you're in the middle of, you've just had a car accident and you're trying to sort out all this stuff and you don't have the Hebrew.
Exactly, it can be quite daunting. So to be honest with you, we do within our insurance agencies, or even though we are here an English-speaking agency, we do employ some native Israelis within the claims department as well. Why? Because sometimes if you need to fight or grapple with the other side, sometimes you need the Israeli know-how to be able to put even though an Anglo may have very good Hebrew, sometimes you want the level of expertise. So we have some excellent claims people within our agency as well, and other agencies I'm sure have the same thing as well. However, if something's not clear, they will happily bring into the conversation someone like myself or other native English speakers within the agency to assist the understanding. But the claims process can be daunting for anyone at the best of times, especially if you've got water that's pouring through the ceiling.
You're trying to get an answer from somebody.
So you want that calming voice. So we and other agents can be there to assist with that process. How ultimately in the claim, a lot of people say, well, what do I do in a claim? If your house is on fire, the first number is not going to be to call your insurance agency, it's going to be to call the fire department. If someone is severely injured in God forbid in a car crash, your first point of call is going to be to the ambulance. It's not going to be to 1 second, the person's unconscious, let me call my insurance broker. The insurance is there to deal with the financial issues afterwards. But they can often we do get calls in advance of let's say a health issue in advance of having a surgery, which is an elective surgery, so that's legitimate. But if it's something which is an emergency,
we'll deal with it
certain things can be dealt with. But if it's something which has to be done this instant, there's procedure, and there within the claims process, often having that English-speaking service to be able to assist you navigate the system so that you can optimize the insurance and make sure you're not having to pay out of pocket for things you don't need to be paying out of pocket. Those are things that are available, but the whole process should be anyway, how can I understand what's going on? Always ask the question, and a decent broker or insurance professional should be able to assist you as an individual, even if you're an native-born Israeli, to help you understand and navigate the system. Often when Olim come here, that language barrier may become an extra issue, but that is something which can be navigated with ease.
Great. Danny, thank you so much. It was really informative and helpful, and we thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you.